Welcome to the Wednesday night Bible study, and we are in the story of Joseph. This is the fourth installment. I'm calling this Imprisoned and Forgotten. We're in Genesis 39. And last time we found Joseph in prison. Joseph was unjustly put in prison and abandoned. In fact, we'll see in today's reading, Joseph calls it a dungeon. Where was God during the dungeon experience? I've suggested last time that God never forgot Joseph. God sees far beyond the situation and knows what needs to be done. For Joseph, God was preparing him for the future. God was saying, Joseph, be patient. I'm with you. I'm not ignoring you or rejecting you. I'm preparing you for my service. So let's read what happens next. The second half of verse 20. But while Joseph was there in the prison, the Lord was with him. He showed him kindness and granted him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. So the warden put Joseph in charge of all those held in the prison, and he was made responsible for all that was done there. The warden paid no attention to anything that under Joseph's care, because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. There's that phrase, the Lord was with Joseph. Where was God during the dungeon experience? The Lord was with him. Twice it's mentioned. Joseph was successful in whatever he did thanks to God. Joseph didn't deserve jail, but he responded to it beautifully. So time has passed. It could be years later that we read this. Some time later, in Genesis 40, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt offended their master, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh was angry with his two officials, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and put them in custody in the house of the captain of the guard in the same prison where Joseph was confined. So what is a cupbearer? It's the person who tested the wine and the food of the king was about to eat or drink. It had to be a close relationship between the cupbearer and Pharaoh, one of trust. Something must have happened to break that trust, but we're not told what that was. Something must have happened with the baker too. We're not told. Did the biscuits taste bad that morning? Maybe did the baker put something too spicy in the cake? Whatever happened, they both landed in jail. God sometimes brings alongside us people with similar experiences or hurts or misery. These two men and Joseph got there for different reasons, but in the same place, the same misery. Was it just coincidence they ended up with Joseph? No, part of God's perfect plan. Out of Joseph's experience, we're going to see he's able to minister to them. In verse 4, the captain of the guard assigned them to Joseph, and he attended them. After they had been in custody for some time, each of the two men, the cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were being held in prison, had a dream the same night, and each dream had a meaning of its own. When Joseph came to them the next morning, he saw that they were dejected. So he asked Pharaoh's officials who were in custody with him in his master's house, "Why are your faces so sad today?" "We both had dreams," they answered, "but there is no one to interpret them." Then Joseph said to them, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams." So Joseph asked these two men why they had sad dreams. If anybody ought to have had a sad dream, it should have been Joseph. Joseph's situation was much worse than theirs. They were there on a whim of the Pharaoh. Chances were good they would not be there forever. Joseph's chances were that he'd never see the light of day. But Joseph kept a good attitude and a good heart. He showed that by asking these guys about their troubles, he could see beyond his own troubles and needs and minister to others. When it turns out that they were worried about their dreams, I would imagine Joseph was excited, because here these guys had the dreamer of all dreamers sitting in their midst. Important to notice who he gives credit to for this gift. Then Joseph said to them, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams." He was in no way taking credit for what was about to happen. But also, you'd think he wouldn't want to have anything to do with dreams. Remember what happened to the last time he did that. He told his brothers about his dreams, and he ended up being sold to become a slave. Let's read on. So the chief cupbearer told Joseph his dream. He said to him, "In my dream I saw a vine in front of me, and on the vine were 3 branches. As soon as it budded, it blossomed, and its clusters ripened into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes, squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup, and put the cup in his hand." This is what it means, Joseph said to him. The 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your position, and you will put Pharaoh's cup in his hand, just as you used to do when you were his cupbearer. So Joseph is able to give the cupbearer some very good news. It would take a few days to see if it was a true interpretation, but it did offer the cupbearer some hope. Then Joseph shows his humanity. He said, but when all goes well with you, remember me and show me kindness. Oops, I didn't get there. Sorry about that. But when all goes well with you, you remember me and show me kindness. Mention me to Pharaoh and get me out of this prison. For I was forcibly carried off from the land of the Hebrews, and even here I have done nothing to deserve being put in a dungeon. So Joseph's a real person. He did a person a favor and asked for a favor in return. It was a pretty smart thing to suggest. Nobody was closer to Pharaoh than the chief cupbearer. So he says, keep me in mind when it turns out well for you. Don't blame him for that. The other prisoner, the baker, has been listening in on the conversation. He liked what he heard, so when the chief baker saw that Joseph had given a favorable interpretation, he said to Joseph, I too had a dream. On my head were 3 baskets of bread. In the top basket were all kinds of baked goods for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating them out of the basket on my head. This is what it means, Joseph said. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift off your head and hang you on a tree, and the birds will eat away your flesh. So that's not so good. So what does my dream mean? Asked the baker. Well, your future is going to be a little different. You have to respect Joseph's integrity, that he knew the dream meant the guy was going to die, to be killed. Who wants to be a messenger of that kind of message? It would have been easy to tell the baker anything, make up a lie. The baker would have never known the difference. But Joseph was a man who told the truth. Just like he told the truth about the future for he and his brothers. You could say that Joseph's goal was not to win friends. Joseph's goal was to represent God. How would you expect it to end? Now, missed that. Now the 3rd day was Pharaoh's birthday, and he gave a feast for all his officials. He lifted up the heads of the chief cupbearer and the chief baker in the presence of his officials. He restored the chief cupbearer to his position, so that he once again put the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker, just as Joseph had said to them in his interpretation. So as expected, it happened just as Joseph said it would. The events involving both men came about precisely as Joseph had predicted. At least that part of the story comes out as we'd expect. But to make it a wonderful story, what would be the next part of the story? The cupbearer resumed his job and immediately told the Pharaoh about Joseph. And Pharaoh realized the injustice done to Joseph and released him. That's not what happened, though. Let's read the next verse. Don't have it here. Verse 23. The chief cupbearer, however, did not remember Joseph. He forgot him. The chief cupbearer, however, did not remember Joseph. He forgot him. Isn't that tragic? Doesn't your heart break for Joseph? And in fact, the next chapter, Genesis 41, begins with, when 2 full years had passed. Talk about disappointment. Instead of being remembered and rewarded, he was forgotten for 2 more years. Even though he had done no wrong, even though he had only told the truth, even though he had specifically requested to be remembered, what became of all that? Nothing. What did Joseph think about during these 2 long years? I wouldn't blame him to become mad at God, or at least to feel abandoned by God. Here's a conversation I might have had with God if I were in his shoes. God, do you see what's going on? Are you even there? I never deserved to be here to begin with, but I didn't complain or try to escape. I interpreted the dreams correctly and gave you the glory. I did what you wanted me to. I've served you faithfully. I guess you've forgotten me. But Joseph was a man of faith and patience. We'll see this. He continued to wait. He continued to trust. He continued to hope. He continued to lean on God. That's where we're going to leave it, in this state. It looks like he has still been forgotten. But there is more to the story. In the meantime, you all take care, be safe, and may the Lord be with you.